let's just talk about like the whole thing with trans civil rights for a second, and kind of just my thoughts and feelings about this. I guess first of all, I will say it does seem like it is clear over the last week or so that the government is targeting this kind of stuff, this kind of LGBTQ stuff. As an anarchist, ultimately, I don't believe that the government has a right to come in and tell people that they should, not identify as something or whatever. I just think that's crazy. That being said, I don't necessarily think that what's going on is that per se. Here's an article I want to read. It's from Iowa Public Radio. Bill would remove protections from transgender Iowans from the Iowa Civil Rights Act. Now, I'll show this real quick. And now I look at that article. I look at that headline, and the thing that comes out to me the most is protections. This idea of a protected class. And I think if anybody understands libertarianism, understands anarchism, maybe not libertarians, but anarchism for sure, their rights don't really exist. Civil rights don't really exist in that worldview. Civil rights are, it's just a byproduct of government. I mean, really, it's not even really true. Like, it almost keeps that category in like a container. I almost like to think of it as a container, right? Because like, look at it this way: white people don't have civil rights, right? And like white people don't really need it. I mean, nobody really needs it, but white people especially don't need it. I mean, I'm willing to admit that for a large portion of them. There are very poor white people. I've met them. I've known them. But like, do they need to be in a protected class? No. And in extension to that, I would say the same. If black civil rights were on the table for this, I would say the same thing. Like, yes, there's obviously a targeted approach from the government, and that is sad and unfortunate. But I think people will hear something like that, and they will immediately take an emotional stance on it. They will immediately get upset without even really understanding what that means. What does it actually mean to remove civil rights from trans people? And now let's scroll down. They kind of, because the thing that a lot of people are obviously upset about this. The quote I've seen over and over again is, "This is the worst bill we have ever seen come out of the Iowa. This is the worst bill we've seen." Where's that quote? Sorry. "This is the worst bill we have ever seen come out of the Iowa legislature, and that is a high bar," Mowat said. I don't know what Mowat says. So, okay, but let's look at what this actually means right here. Transgender women would be barred from women's bathrooms, locker rooms, domestic violence shelters, prisons, rape crisis centers, and more. So here's the thing, and yes, I think another aspect of that too is that the genders are officially male and female. One of the things about the LGBTQ and transgender movement that in the early days I always kind of admired, actually, was like it just seemed like people people in that movement have obviously wanted civil rights. I think like any group has, but there was also like an enormous sense of individualism that came from these groups. Like, in my mind, I think people are giving the whole idea of the male and female legal status way more power than it is. Yes, I understand that that might, for this government paper, you're gonna have to write male or female, and I don't know. I guess ultimately I just don't really care. It's just about something like that, because you can go write male or female on your driver's license, and also just be like, hey, I'm trans, I'm whatever, I identify as this. Nobody can really take that away from you. The government, they can't actually take that away from you. It might feel like they're taking that away from you. That might be the environment, and I can understand why people would feel like that. But like ultimately, at the end of the day, nobody's really doing that. Now, okay, they would be barred from women's bathrooms, locker rooms. So let's just focus on those first two things. I think there is an argument that if you have a little kid with you in a public bathroom and someone who is biologically the other sex, no matter what their appearance is or how they present themselves or whatever, walking into the bathroom is uncomfortable. And I can clearly understand why at a school or a government building, why parents would be upset by that. If I had a kid, I would be upset with the idea of that. So again, I just, again, I think this is just something that the alternate route for this is the private sector. If you don't like the fact that there are only 2 bathrooms now or something, like if the government's mandating that, because here's another thing, right? Like I think the thing about this that is positive is that they are not breaching the private sector. I do think, well, they did remove the discrimination stuff, which again, I don't believe that like there should be laws for discrimination. I think that's a conversation for another day. But if there's a business that doesn't want to hire trans people, don't go work for that business. I mean, I don't know. I sound like an arrogant ass when I'm saying this kind of stuff, but like the responses are very simple in my mind. Okay, the government isn't acknowledging you, then don't participate in the government. That's when you say, fuck the government. I'm not gonna, like, that's when you stop voting. That's when you stop giving it power. That's when you start looking more towards, okay, I'm gonna find, or if it's not there, I'm gonna start a local private business that is going to cater to trans, that is going to cater to the LGBTQ status. If you want to say create safe space, fine. You want to do that for people. All the power to you. You don't need this government thing to do that.